She wasn't conscious, but I was right there. I was holding her hand. I was just saying thank you. Just I love you. I thank you. Just kept saying it. They say one of your last senses to go is your hearing.
Well, today on Off the Record, this is a very special one for me. They say that relationships and friendships are solidified when you have the opportunity to spend time with someone in different environments and contexts. I am fortunate to have done so with our next guest, Brandon Breaux, someone I consider a friend and has added value to my life and many things which surround me. The Chicago-based multidisciplinary artist makes a pit stop here at Else to share his present-day ambitions, ideologies on his work, spiritual wisdom, and his personal encounter with death and transition of life. As a conscious leader, practitioner, connector, teacher, intellectual, and cultural mover, please join us as we get to know Brandon Breaux.
It's taken us 6 years to come back together.
Yeah.
You know, we're meeting on a ledge.
Yeah.
6 years later. I don't know if this is a metaphor for something in our lives at the moment, you know. It's so great to see you, dude.
You too, man.
Really great to see you, you know, and thank you for taking the time to come to KL and just to be here, spend time together, and just converse, right?
Yeah.
You know, it was so great seeing you last night or early this morning coming in. It was almost surreal for me, right? Because like we keep saying, like time is a little bit of a construct, right? And you kind of think like, can't believe it's been 6 years, but 6 years almost feels like 10 years. But at the same time, thankfully, we can pick up, you know, kind of where we left off.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so great getting in at 2 a.m. And I think we started like just really diving into substance, right? And diving into a lot of incredible matter, if you will, right? So catch me up a little bit, man. You know, it's been 6 years. We speak from time to time, but you know, maybe you can just catch me up a little bit about where you are, what's happening, and what's really mattering to you the most these days.
Yeah, man, it has been some time. I think the past 6 years has been like a lot of refinement, also a lot of experimentation, and also a lot of like feeling things out, feeling the art workout, feeling out relationships as well, and really determining what matters most, what I won't compromise on. It's just things like that in life. But from the standpoint of like family and building a life more so than before, you know, I think I was doing a lot of experimentation and seeking and just doing different things when I came last time. But those are the kind of the things, if I will have to kind of go off the top and say what they are, that's the sort of the sweet spot. Like, refinement and really figuring out my terms. You know what I mean? Right now I'm in a place of just maintaining like a steady practice and a steady flow. Still curious, staying curious, always being willing to experiment. You know, what I care about most now is longevity, but then also taking care of people in my life. You know, being of some support to kind of help people on their journey. With what they have to do, next, so long as they're willing to play the game, you know, because that's a whole other thing, right? So like figuring that out and like what should we be investing the time and the energy into, and then what is just like the feel isn't right. I'm gonna let them handle that. I'm gonna let this person handle that and move on. So that's kind of been what that's been what things have been. I've had the opportunity to do some incredible work over the past 6 years, and yeah, just get some feedback from some great people, some people that I admire, and it's been awesome. And life goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I'm taking 3 words away right now from what you said, right? And one of them is refinement, no compromise, and longevity, right? I guess first and foremost, like touching on refinement and no compromise, because there has to be this counterpoint or this cross section between, not compromising something and then continuously refining it, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? And do you see the overlap or the correlation between the two?
Yeah, I think the work at a certain degree, the practice, the work, the thing that you are here to do, that you feel like you're here to do, it's like needs to be a priority in some way, And I'm trying my best not to make that thing a product and more so a practice, and more so a practice that's specifically tied to exactly why I make art, and period, right? Before it's tied to it being a product or an output, because I think when it becomes just that, it's easy to lose yourself in what's being produced and what's being created. And I never did the thing to lose myself to what someone else wanted. I started art. It was a part of my life. It's always been a part of my life, and been this thing that I use to get through certain moments in life, that I use to provide me some sort of information. I use it as sort of a meditative practice to escape or to release, So really wanted to maintain that. And refinement of that means, it means just a certain level of consistency. And then also like focus. Because even if I'm not in the studio, I'm thinking through the things, and I'm processing the things. And I should say the reason why I create work to understand. I create work to understand myself, like why it is that I process the things the way that I process them.
Yeah.
To really truly understand that, where's that coming from? Like, where's that reaction coming from when some things happen, right? Where am I'm sourcing these ideas, like why? So kind of to understand the context of my life and my lived experience, but then also to be understood, right? I feel like there's something that I have this innate force, a drive, or want and desire to be understood. And I think people do in general, right? This living experience is like, it's kind of lonely, right? You have a lot of moments, whether it's internal or at night when you're sleeping, where it's lonely, So to be understood makes this experience a little less lonely.
Yeah.
And a little more worth living, right? If you're relating to the environment and in conversation with the environment in some meaningful way. So that's how I would put the why.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you talk about like focus, talk about being understood, or in some way being relatable.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another word there, the longevity and the focus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And last night or early this morning, we were talking about the mortality of your work,
mm-hmm.
right? And how, whether we realize it or not, what we're doing actually has a window, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And even yourself as a multidisciplinary artist, as you could be a painter, a sculptor, you could be an installer of sorts, a ceramist, or whatever it may be. But at some point, some of these skills, not that they're going to completely evaporate and diminish or disappear.
Yeah.
You're definitely going to be at the sunset kind of stage of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's the case, how is that? How do you look at longevity and focus? Because then when you're focusing, do you think about longevity and the actual end of healthy run, right? So I can want longevity as an athlete, but I also know that, well, my run is going to be for the next, 8 to 10 years or however long it may be. Is that something that you're consciously, aware of, or perhaps thinking about when you're making decisions or moving forward?
Yeah, I'm aware of it. I try not to think about it too much, because all of it is speculation. In my life, I'm an artist, and I would just be making my life. You know what I mean? Like, it's the most natural thing for me to do, to ideate, to create, to think about solutions, to think about how I want to see this in this internal world, or my world, on a world that serves the people that I want to serve, right? So I think that's something that I see myself doing for my whole life. They talk about Matisse, and later on in his life, and he wasn't really mobile. He was in the bed, and he just had this long paintbrush when he was doing his thing. I think when things are so much a part of who you are, you figure out how to still engage. You figure out what that engagement, and you're going to do as much as you can. You know what I mean? To do the thing. So whether it's just not being able to move and talking through concepts and ideating about things I think in our practice is damn near just as much intellectual as it is this physical labor.
Yeah, so it's constant recalibration.
Absolutely, man. So when I think about it, I think about those things. But it's interesting, in the conversation we had last night, we were talking about second phases. So I am in this point in my career, my life, where I'm thinking about I want to create for a long time, but at the same time, there's some things I don't necessarily want to share. I'm not sure if I want to share my art in the same way for the next 30 years. I might want to keep my art because it's my art, and I'm working through personal things with it. I'm really using it for that it's not just design where I'm designing an output that's going to be put on something and sold, or I'm designing a schema or plan or building, Part of what I do, the art thing that I do, is me actually working through things in life. And sometimes it's good to have those things around. Sometimes it's good also to share those, to have those things for your family, opposed in somebody else's collection, right? Have those things so the people that come after you can kind of understand a little bit more where they come from.
Yeah.
And how we got here, right? So I think about it like that. And yeah, man, no speculation, man. We here. I'm doing what I can at the moment, and just trying to find joy in that presence. Boom.
Yes.
I mean,
listen, most people do know you as an artist, and they know who you are as your quote unquote persona, right?
Mm-hmm.
But getting to know you, everything is rooted and connected to, I believe in you, a specific set of values, a specific way of thinking, which is also very character driven, which is also very rooted in data, in research. I think that you're someone who really likes to excavate and make sure that you find every last bone before you put something together. And so I want to maybe dive into that, right? Today, what are those value systems that drive you? What are those few values or those few personal characteristics that actually make you, and that you will not compromise on, right?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Honesty is one of those things. Finding space to be honest, even when the honesty ain't sexy. And even when the honesty is something that's kind of hard to understand or hard to hear. And that's being honest with myself, but also being honest with other people. I can give people the illusion that they want to see right now, because you could paint the picture of what they want to see right now. Or you can also spend some time to be completely honest with where you are. And I think that always feels a lot more fulfilling than just putting on a show.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother thing, because once you get known for a thing, you're putting on a show. And people are coming the next night to see that show. You know what I mean? And that's a thing, right? So honesty is one. I think the other one is finding the humanity in this in this life and in our experience and celebrating humanity. And what I say, or what I mean when I say that, I mean that the aspects that make us who we are, in the deepest, most spiritual like sense, and really putting on for people.
Is that could that be classified as some sort of level of empathy?
Yeah, absolutely. Empathy. You hit it on the head. I mean, yes. I think art is a great mechanism to be able to expand individuals' capacity for empathy as well through art, right? Because you're going out to understand. Like, the experience of going and seeing art is very it's filled with a lot of curiosity, right? Because you have to get into someone else's head if you truly want to understand what line might they have been traveling in order to arrive at this destination, or what path might they have been traveling. And I think it does something for us to engage in that inquiry and that curiosity often, right? We learn a little bit more about other people, and we understand ourselves a little bit more in that too. We give ourselves a broader vocabulary of which to speak from, to think about, language to use as a reference, images to use as a reference. We put playlists together. I mean, back in the day when I was burning CDs, I would put playlists together for people to express how I felt through 60 minutes, like, of time. But I think those things are really important. So humanity, empathy, and
honesty.
Yes, and honesty. Yes, honesty. There's also this thing that I'm trying to do, and it's just trying to encourage us not to operate so siloed, and it's like these silo realities so much, and limited ourselves, right? Because it's very easy, especially in this time, to live in a world, right? To curate a world to live in, and that's all, right? Yeah. And I think that can be very dangerous, right? Because that's not reality.
Yeah.
A world that you construct or that's constructed around you is not the absolute reality.
That's good, right? Because we were touching on something that by you coming out here traveling, you came from Tokyo, you did a quick pit stop at KL, you're now going to Singapore, and one thing that you were touching on earlier was about how back home, even for us, people have created their own bubbles, right? Their own realities.
Yeah.
And they unfortunately don't have the exposure for whatever reason. And some of it is by absolutely no fault of theirs, right? But that they don't have the exposure to at least what you've exposed yourself to by coming over to this side of the world, by forging the relationships that you forged, and by cultivating those friendships and those relationships that then have allowed you to create, multiple ecosystems, right? And so, maybe share a little bit about that thought that you were sharing with me about how you feel that, sometimes even when you're back home, and I think this is true for pretty much anywhere in the world, right? Because we all get into our routines, we all get into our bubbles, we all get into our own little rat race, if you will. But maybe touch on how that initial feeling that, when you shared with me this morning that you were like, oh man, I just feel like back home, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you even wish that people would have the opportunity and the ability to have these experiences, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of it's about growth, and I have to stay elastic. I have to stay growing, in order to really grow. Like literally the brain. You know what I mean? Like you have to have new experiences and do different things if you want to continue to grow, and you continue to develop and expand in beautiful, meaning ways. Not expand in a way of, I have more responsibilities, but no, like expand your understanding of what this is, right? So then you have more information to impart on to others, and so on and so on and so on. But yeah, I think right now we really got to be careful, man. Like a lot of our conveniences and our luxuries are building walls around our own experiences and creating environments that aren't really real, right? And that keep us detached from what real everyday people are going through. So, and it gets dangerous when you see all this stuff on the news happening, and then people just tune it out of their minds because it's literally not a reality for them. Yeah. And they live in an America or in a place that can afford them to act like that isn't happening. But who's to say you're not next? Or who's to say that somebody you are deeply related to or rely on for your existence isn't next?
Yeah.
And I think that's when it becomes like, all right, we're in this together.
Yeah, well, most people don't become advocates, ambassadors, or champions of something unless it has a direct impact on them.
Absolutely.
People.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's just, of course, my opinion. But for the most part, we're not going to walk for, cancer or certain human rights, or unless it has had a direct impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully, that's changing, right? Hopefully, people are becoming much more aware.
Yeah.
They're becoming much more empathetic.
I think we have to be, absolutely. I think we have to maintain that. Yeah. We have to be serious about like maintaining that, our curiosity around the world. And also, not afraid of people who don't agree with us, or situations that don't agree with our views or our ideals. A lot of times people shy away from those conversations, but it's
just
like,
fear, right?
Exactly.
Or even the reaction of
it can be fear
of becoming upset.
Yeah,
I still think it's driven by fear.
Yeah,
because you maybe lack the tools, the understanding, the empathy.
Yeah,
or even just the exposure to know. Okay, let me just hear this person out.
Yeah.
If we don't agree, then we have the right to not agree, but it doesn't necessarily need to be something that separates you completely.
Yeah, man. I think that's true, and I think that aspects about that, but then also think about it as like people don't want to be wrong. They don't want to be wrong about the life they built around and the ideals that they built. You know what I mean? Because that's a lot of work to rebuild all of that shit.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, it's also like, am I not living my truth? That
exactly
to rebuild it.
Yes, it starts to question your identity. It's uncomfortable being wrong about things that are so deeply set that, and also being embarrassed about something that you adamantly proclaimed, and you have to eat your words. That's not easy all the time for people. So it's a lot easy to lean into situations and stay away from situations or conversations that are difficult for you when you have to seriously consider somebody else's perspective who does not see the world the way that you see the world. And I think we have to fight for that. We have to fight for that to be better people to one another, and we have to fight for that to be better people to ourselves and the youth and the people that come after us.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can only run from a reality so long. It eventually, you bump into it later in life or some other time.
Yeah.
Where you see your seed or somebody else making some of the same mistakes that you were afraid to admit to, you never got the chance to correct because you weren't willing to have that conversation.
You're afraid to admit to them, even if you see your seed doing them, then the cycle's just going to repeat itself. So you're not correcting it, right? Because out of shame or guilt or embarrassment, you don't want to tell, your child or your whoever may be, hey, you know what, like I did this, right?
Yeah.
And learn from it, but you don't want them to also cast judgment on you. So going back to honesty.
Yeah. Having the audacity to truly be honest.
Truth.
Yeah.
Truth.
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind, Brandon, but with all due respect, I know your mother passed away last year. And she transitioned last year. And I'm very grateful that to this day my mother's in my life. But I've heard that one of the hardest voids, one of the hardest things to go through is the loss of, the loss of a mother. But you see parents saying the hardest thing you can do is bear the loss of a child. But I know that from what I've seen and what I've understood, you had a certain relationship with your mother, certain closeness with your mother.
Yeah.
And not even that, even with your grandmother.
Yeah.
Right. And so could you give me a glimpse into, what has that kind of imparted in you at this moment in life, and where you are with that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Grief is an interesting thing, and I think no matter how much you prepare yourself for a thing, which I'm glad I did. I'm glad I prepared myself years ago. I just understood that our relationship was so close, and I didn't lie to myself or shy away from myself to think that my mom would be there for my whole life. And my mom was very much aware of that too, because we lost some people early on to the health, like some other things too. So we were just in on that conversation. We talked about it.
Yeah. Talked
about one day, this was before she got sick, So it still was tough, man. It hits you in ways in which you don't anticipate, and at times you don't anticipate. You'll be fine at some point, and then things will happen that bring you back to the day of, or the moment, Like I was there with my mom, man. I was there when she took her last breath. She wasn't conscious, but I was right there. I was holding her hand. I was just saying thank you. Just I love you. I thank you. Just kept saying it. They say one of your last senses to go is your hearing, right? So I was just affirming her, the work that she did, how proud I was of her, and even the proud I was of her and the work that she did fighting the cancer, showing up every day, and her not only doing it for herself or her life, but also wanting to be an example for our sisters, or wanting to be an example for the rest of the family. There's a lot of work she put in, But it's tricky, man. It's a spiritual thing. It hits you when you're weak. I was in Mexico, and it's back in I think October or so, and I got sick a little bit, and I was so much more vulnerable to like the grief. It's not too long after my mom passed. And that day where I was going through whatever I was going through in my body physically, my emotional self was also really vulnerable. And I never really connected the two, that, that something could be going on physically in your body that could compromise or make you vulnerable spiritually too, And it was the first time that I had a breakdown like that, feeling guilt, feeling a lot of different things. Seeing my mom like every night in my dreams. She was showing up every night in my dreams. It can be tough, but I was raised to weather like whatever kind of storm came, So at the end of the day, I'm proud of what we did. I'm proud of how I got to show up. I think it's an absolute honor that I got to serve my mother in such a way before she transitioned, because not a lot of people even get that time.
Yeah.
Some people just get a phone call,
Yeah.
But I had 7 months with my mother where we dealt with the biggest fucking fear, the most impossible thing to have to like hear from a medical professional or anybody, right? And I was there, I was there. She was present. She chose life. At a certain point, my mother didn't know if she wanted to choose. She didn't know if she wanted to be here. So, and we can get into that like off camera. It gets deep, But through this process, my mother chose life, which is kind of, may sound weird to say, but through her last stage, she chose the life that she had, opposed to not wanting to be here. And to me, I think that's a win. Even though my mother didn't make it on the other side of this battle.
Yeah.
But she chose life.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, what is making it on the other side of this battle?
Yeah. Well, in the physical, that's a point though, that is the next stage. So maybe that was the preparation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
do you feel that, thank you for sharing that. I mean, do you feel that, going back to this topic of honesty, were there moments that you then had with her that were revelations, were, freedoms or releases from both of you that you were able to share with each other, or to find not necessarily closure, but I feel that, death is probably our most vulnerable state we're ever going to encounter, right?
Yeah.
So, does that vulnerability sometimes leaves the door open for us to share and to maybe close some things. I'll give you an example for myself. I'm quite fascinated with documenting, whether it's my grandparents, now my mom, like just asking them questions and not asking them questions like, hey, what's your favorite color? Tell me a joke. Tell me your favorite memory of when you were a kid. But also, going a little bit deeper of saying, well, what has been a traumatic, kind of moment in your life? What has been something that you do regret, right? I know that, people sometimes say no regrets, right? But I feel that for some part, we will all kind of transition with something that we and the word regret is so heavy sometimes, and maybe like a negative connotation. But I'm more than certain that we will always leave with something that was just like left done, left unsaid, left untouched.
Yeah. And
so, do you feel that since you did have those 7 months with her, were you guys able to then share these things and find another side of your relationship because of this?
In ways, I'll start by saying this. There's always work to be done.
Yeah.
There's always work to be done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no matter what you do, there's always more you could have done. That's just like what it is, right?
Yeah.
So you can beat yourself up all day long about what didn't get done and all of this stuff, or how you were being, or like when you had a day and you may have said something to your mom. And in the very beginning of my mom's treatment, she was angry. She was angry at me. She was like upset with me. She didn't want me. She was like, whatever, and
what do you mind sharing where did that stem?
I'm not sure. I think it may have been, maybe it was a reflection of kind of her being I was the person that was there. I was just the person that was like next to her, going through this thing with her. So in a way, we were one thing, I feel, you know what I mean? And it's a reflection of maybe her being upset with herself or what was going on. And if she was going to complain to anybody about anything that was happening, it was going to be me. And if she was going to take it out on anybody, it's going to be me.
Yeah.
She was like, whatever, I don't care, leave. Like she was just pissed in the beginning. And I'm like, and I'd be like, okay, I want to just go ahead and give you your time and just show understanding. And then at a certain point, she called one of her sisters and she was crying. She's like, I just went off on him. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm being like this.
Well, that goes back. I mean, listen, this is beautiful because it then touches back on what you're saying on empathy, right? And then at that moment, you have to, kind of put your place in a place of empathy for your mother, right?
Yeah.
Because, receiving news of mortality means that there is an end to my longevity, or there is at least some kind of line that is somewhere, and it's definitely a lot more visible than not. And so for anyone, you never understand how they may be processing that, right?
Absolutely.
So that anger wasn't to you, actually. Well, more than likely it wasn't even to you. It was just probably an unidentified frustration and anger then was outletted to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's pretty spot on. I think my mom sacrificed a lot for me too. So it's okay. Like I'm not, it's okay. And we got to a point where I think things just really started to settle. She was so adamant about getting through it and getting like, okay, I want to get this done. And that was her attitude in the beginning. And I think as she settled, she got to be present with some things and be at peace with some things that she needed to resolve, within herself. And it was beautiful to see her find her joy in moments where she was feeling better in those times. Because she had a moment where she was beating it and the doctor was talking about remission and all these other things, and seeing her light up and glow and just be excited in those moments still bring me so much joy. I still have the photos in my phone of her smiling on Mother's Day when I bought her flowers last year.
Yeah.
You know, just things like that. Just, it makes a huge difference for me too, because I got a chance to see her still dealing with something difficult and not letting her completely take over.
Yeah.
How she was choosing to be and take on that new day.
Yeah.
Man, so it was deep, man. It was a deep experience, bro. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have that time with my mom, man.
So yeah. What does that mean now, you know, moving forward, this new perspective and this new life? You moved to New York. You've actually, you know, you've transitioned from Chicago to New York. Yeah, maybe talk to me about what the path ahead kind of looks like for you, and not just as an artist, right? Just as a human being. And you know, how are you right now dealing with saying, yeah, you know, like I'm moving to New York. I've got a new environment.
Yeah,
I've got definitely newfound perspectives. I'm sure when you go back from this trip, you've compounded onto those perspectives, right? And you've added on to. And what does that mean now moving forward for your path?
Not believing the fear, you know what I mean? And not letting myself be stopped by any fears I'm not aware of, man, you know? And I always wanted to move to New York, but it was something at a certain point in my life where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to do that.
You can't be wearing that Chicago White Sox hat in New York.
I'll wear both. I wear the New York and Chicago and the Chicago, New York. You can be mad if you want to. I don't care. So what I likely wouldn't do is wear a Cubs hat on the South Side and even on the South Side. That's worse, shit. But yeah, man, I think it's just like, for me, it's being careful where I place unnecessary limitations on my ability and what I can do in this lifetime. Because at a certain point I wanted to move to New York, but we kind of couldn't afford it. So New York in my mind was like a no. You can't do that because you're not allowed and you don't have permission, because shit is not lining up. And now I see myself like living in the city. Down the street, I live like 2 blocks from the school that I wanted to go to.
Wow.
When I wanted to go to New York, that I just really wanted to go to, you know? So like seeing myself in these positions is just like, oh, wow. Where else have I been limiting myself?
That's the word I was going to use, right? These limitations or these parameters that you were putting on yourself, or even your mom back then. So yeah, you know,
because we couldn't. It was, well, from our perspective and our point of view, we knew about this much about the world and what it took to do that thing.
Yeah,
and our field of vision was impossible to go outside of that, right? But as you grow and as you expand, and I've walked on sand thousands of miles away from home right now, then it becomes, well, why isn't that possible? Like, why isn't it, you know?
Yeah, or how is it possible?
Yeah, how? Exactly. And then you open up, this is what that could look like, you know? And then also, do I really need an institution to do that? Can I just do it? A lot of times the institutions and the places are behind. And if you wait for the okay from somebody else, you're going to be too late. You have to build it. You have to go. Because that's what people get behind anyway. That's a key for all the institutions and people that are waiting on institutions. They're waiting for you to build it because they don't know what's possible.
Yeah, I love that.
You know?
I mean, you know, I'm somebody who believes that the trick of this life, like I mentioned to you, the trick of this life is to see how many lives you can live within it.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm excited for you, and I'm happy that you've just birthed a new life, right?
Yeah.
And so you're
living, man. Yeah.
You know, you're now living a new life. So that's incredible, and I salute it, and I'm excited to see what comes out of it, right?
Thank you, man.
Let me ask you, you know, us being I'm a person who believes in no coincidences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting because it's something that I've been repeating to myself for a while now, and I didn't realize it longer than I had, because, you know, this morning when we looked up that last IG post that we had together in 2018 on my IG, and I had in my title for it, No Coincidences, right?
Yeah.
But going along that line, sitting on this ledge,
Yeah.
do you think that there's any meaning of sitting on this ledge as a metaphor for where you are in your life right now? And we talk about fear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like completely just, stiff-arming fear,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I mean, some would say, well, us just, sitting on this beam, it is actually somewhat of a comfort.
Yeah.
But taking that 2 steps back, if you had to think about sitting on a ledge as a metaphor, how would you apply that to where you are today?
Yeah. I think it's like a risk, They're the expected moves and the expected areas that you can kind of go in, I feel personally, in life. But I honestly feel like those are not calling me as strongly as my inquiries and as strongly as these other things that I have in mind. So I feel like I would be doing somewhat of a disservice to do the obvious at this point. No one would be upset with me for doing the obvious, right? Everybody has something to say when you don't.
Yeah.
So I think that is the edge that I'm living. Do I truly go and embody the next exploration?
Yeah.
And it's also how you move off the ledge too. Do you slip, or do you jump and you open your wings? You know what I'm saying? and you eventually soar.
Right now.
You know what I mean? Yeah, right. Not right now. But that's the thing, man. Like, that's how I would kind of relate it. I think, why not? Why isn't it a metaphor for what's next?
Yeah, and I think it is.
Puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Brandon, like, thank you so much, and I think that these words of focus, of longevity, of no compromise, of no regrets, of taking risks. It's beautiful because there definitely is an overlap in all of these things, right? And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's next. I'm excited to see what's next for, not only your life as an artist in your career, but I'm also excited to see what's next as your life as a human and as a man.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful that you're here, and just thank you for spending some time and chatting.
Absolutely.
Onward and upward.
Yeah, man. I got to do that residency next.
Please, be an honor.
Let's do it. It'll give some more space for even new energy, new thoughts.
Yeah. So much love. Sending you, giving you clarity and energy. Thanks. Keep it going.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Salud.
Salud.